Hello and welcome to the ICATS video series on setting up the RDS Teacher Module Gradebook for new users. My name is Jared Gleim, and I'm the ICATS educator that works with your building tech coordinator, who is the support person for teachers in your building with RDS Gradebook. Today I will be guiding you through the setup process of your gradebook and will show you some of the ins and outs of what the teacher module has to offer. In this particular video, we will explore setting up the grading scales feature in your gradebook so we can get rid of this pesky pop-up window that keeps coming up when you get into your gradebook. So enough talk, let's get started. So to begin with, let's go ahead and get rid of this pesky window and click OK. And click View Edit up at the top on the menu bar and come down and left click on Grade Scales. And we should see this window pop up here. It says Define Grading Scales. Before we actually get into this, first thing I want to show you real quick is this red dot. This red dot is a quick menu that helps give a little bit of help on a screen or menu. I mean, you probably see it on the far right hand side of your gradebook screen. This red dot does, when you click on it, it will bring up a web page that will define terms, give instructions on how to use a particular window. So you know that has served to be pretty helpful for folks. And if you still need help, definitely consult your building tech coordinator. And of course, if they can't help you, they will call me, and I will help them help you. So first thing we're going to do in the grading scales is click this drop down. Now, when I click my drop down, all I see is Add New Grade Scales. There's no grading scales in my list. Now, when you click yours, you may see grading scales already existing in this drop-down. Before we go any further, what I need you to do is I need you to look through these grading scales, if you do have them, to see if they may work for what you're wanting to do. If you don't have to recreate it, you can use what you got. If you have taken the place of a teacher who has left, you may have some grading scales sitting there. Now, if you don't like their grading scales, here's the thing you need to know. If there are grading scales there and you don't like them and you want to get rid of them, unfortunately you can't. Those grading scales may be tied to past data that is being archived downtown. If you were to delete those, what you may inadvertently do is skew the data that is being stored in our warehouse. So please make sure that you do not delete past grading scales unless you know for sure that they are not tied to any past grade books. So, but if you do want to create a new grading scale, let's proceed. So, add new grading scale. We need to come down here first. Instead of going this route and defining all of our terms, there's a really quick and easy way, and that is by coming down here and clicking Import Global Grade Scales. And when I do that, a pop-up window says, would you like them to overwrite your grade scales if they have the same name? If there's no grading scales in your list, you can click Yes. If there are grading scales in your list, it's a safe thing to click No. In fact, everybody can go ahead and click No. And even if you don't have any grading scales, and click OK, it showed me there that I had 2 grading scales that were imported. But just make sure that you don't overwrite any standard grade scales that may already be tied to something. Click the drop down, and we see here in our list we have SINU scale. Now this scale is for skills entry. Elementary teachers do have a course in their list where they will assign skills entry grades. If you're a middle school teacher or a high school teacher, you can come down here and click Delete, and then delete this grading scale. If you're elementary, do not delete this, okay? Because we will use this later on in a tutorial down the road. So high school, middle school, you can go ahead and delete it. Let's go ahead and go to our standard scale now, because this is one everybody's going to pretty much use. And as you can see here, we have minimum percentage, default percentage values, and also the letter grades A, B, C, D, F. Before we get to this, let's come up here and change the name of our standard grade scale. If you remember earlier when we clicked Import Global Grade Scales, it said, do we want to overwrite them if they already exist by the same name? If you were to click Yes, in the future, you would overwrite your standard grade scale. which would then change past data. So let's make sure here that we create a unique name, so just in case we need to bring in more grade scales in the future by using this import global grade scales, it won't override it. So I'm going to go ahead and call this ICAT standard. It looks like I had my caps lock key on when I didn't want it. Okay, so I've named my grading scale. You can click save here, which is fine. It's always good to save your work. And you'll notice here in the drop down it did change the name. Next thing we're going to look at is the values that we have listed here on the screen and what these columns actually mean. Minimum percentage means that this is the minimum percentage value that a student would need to receive in order to get a letter grade. So for my standard grade scale as it stands right now, if a kid receives a 90.00000, they will receive an A. Okay, now you might be thinking, well, I would like to have this thing do some rounding for me. I would like it to give an 89.5 an A. How do I do that? Well, this is where you do that. So here, if I want an 89.5 to count as an A, I'd type it here in the minimum percentage. Okay, RDS does not round it. So if a kid receives a 89.5, it's not going to show up as a 90 on the grade report. It's going to show up as an 89.5. So that's just so that way nothing gets confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and change all my other values to kind of reflect what I'm trying to do here. So it's 79, 69, and 59.5. Put 0.5s on all those. Okay, so I'm done modifying my minimum percentage. Now, if you want to go back in and change this later, you need to be careful. You want to do that before you submit any grades to the system. Otherwise, it's going to change values in past report cards that you've actually submitted that would be tied to this particular grading scale. Alright, same thing goes for default value. Now, default percentage is the default percentage that a letter grade would receive when given for an assignment. For instance, if I were to give a student an A on a particular assignment, and I don't want to type in the percentage value or the raw points value for that A, I just want to type in the letter A just because I want to do it real quick and fast, that the A will count as 100%. Okay, if I were to give a student a B, it would count as 89% in my grade book. Okay, now we really recommend that you do not change the default percentage values, and the reason why is it has actually caused more harm than good. Just speaking from experience and the emails that I receive from teachers on why are my percentages, why are my kids not getting A's when they've had mostly all A's, and then they get, if they change the value to something really obnoxious, and it really skews the percentage down, and then the kid can never recover and get the grade back up. So the way they are right now, the default percentages has been the most successful. So I would highly recommend you just leave it at that. Okay, so I'm pretty much done here setting up my standard scale. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. That is finished. Now if I want to add another grading scale, let's say I have an advanced class. As you can see here, I have my ICAT standard and my SANU. Instead of going in here and doing add new grading scale, let's just real quick just click Import Global Grade Scales again. Click No. And now I've got two grade scales imported. I see here in my list I have another standard scale. So I can come in here and I can call this ICAT's Advanced. If I can type. And then I can come in here and I can change the minimum percentage to 94. And then we can have this be 86. And so on and so forth. So you can, if you have a more advanced scale, you can do it as that. Let's see, I want to change that to 66. And then click Save. Now I've got a second SANU. I want to simplify my list here. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that one. Now I'm pretty much done. I've got my advanced scale, I've got my standard scale, and I've got my skills entry grading scales. So this concludes this tutorial on setting up grading scales. Join me in the next video in the series where we will look at setting up your assignment categories.